welcome to the latest episode of the Give My Head podcast. This is episode 40, but it could be 42, something like that. The magic number from
Hitchhiker's
Guide to the Galaxy, the magic number 42.
Life, the universe, and everything.
I'm Tim McGarry, joined by my comedy colleagues
Michael McDowell,
Damon Quinn.
We discuss culture, comedy, arts. We speak to actors, we speak to politicians, we speak to anybody we have who would like to talk to us because we're having a very good time on the Give My Head podcast. We'd just like to plug a couple of things. I think just about Perforated Ulster is still on Radio Ulster on BBC Sounds. The best of is certainly about there. We've just finished our latest series of Perforated Ulster on Radio Ulster. Loads of episodes of Give My Head Piece are still online on iPlayer, BBC iPlayer. I think there's about 30 old episodes on there. We're doing a new episode at Christmas. And best of all, ladies and gentlemen, Give My Head podcast. For the first time, we're going live. We are going live. We're going to the Mandela Hall at Queen's University on Sunday, the 12th of October. The first time ever we'll be doing a live podcast. We'll be having some actors from Give My Head Piece. We'll probably be reading some old episodes of Give My Head Piece. We'll have some stand-up, some crack, some fun, some special guests. Look out for that. Get your tickets now for the 12th of October, Sunday the 12th of October at the Mandela Hall at Queen's University. Our guest today, ladies and gentlemen, comedy in Northern Ireland since we were young fellas has exploded. It's gone stellar. It's going through the roof. And our guest today is one of those guys who has, don't take this the wrong way, Paddy, emerged from kind of nowhere, and then I went, where's Paddy Raff, and I heard about you. The next thing you're selling out fucking SSE arenas. Ladies and gentlemen, we're delighted to welcome Mr. Paddy Raff. Welcome, Paddy. How are you doing? Thank you. Listen, thank you for popping by. You're a Westie, aren't you?
I'm a Westie, yeah.
See, we have had
a bad run of us.
We're coming down with fucking Westies. I'm a Westie.
I'm sort of the very much the BT9 of West Belfast. Andy Town.
All right.
Brook.
Oh, Brook.
Not too far from where you are.
Oh, right. I'm at Riverdale.
Riverdale, yeah. It's just on over.
Is Brook a cut above?
It's the next one. I don't know what it is about it. It just has this wee fucking herb. Are you like the curse? Sorry. For that. And I was going to shit myself when you said we're going live. I was like, not now. No, nobody told me this. So it's not for a while. That's okay. Yeah. Brook. Yeah. One of them ones.
What do you mean one of them? Are they?
We were the ones they hated. Whenever you got the black taxis, they hated when you said Ladybrook. So if you went to Castle Street, you could kind of have your choice of 5 destinations: Glamorous, Lagmore, or one of the more like well-trodden places. See, when you said Ladybrook, very few people wanted to go there. So it meant they would have no chance of making any fares up the road because nobody wants to get in. So you go Ladybrook, for fuck's sake. They have to
turn left at Finicky, you see.
Yeah, that's it, and that cuts everything off.
They're losing a lot of them. So if you said Ladybrook,
they're raging. I jumped in one time and I said Ladybrook, and he get in, and this guy ducked and weaved and to catch up with another Ladybrook one to throw me into it. And he says, "You going Ladybrook?" And I jumped out, and I get out. He says, "I'm fucking full though." So I just stood there, and he drove on. It's like just get kicked out in the middle of the fall. So yeah, we suffer.
Black hacks are gone now. You can't get a black hack.
Well, the
private
the gliders kind of the thing now, because all the young ones get on the glider because you get the free internet. So the glider is like the youth club now. Right. You don't need youth clubs anymore. You've got the glider.
Youth club on wheels. I have heard
you get the internet on the glider. You didn't get the internet in the back of a black hack. You got secondary smoke from everybody having 10 people having fags.
You used to get more. You got more than that in the back. You got the right. You're the wrong person. You get more than the internet. Know everything. I got in one time and a fella sat in front of me holding a pigeon the whole way up. Just lifted a pigeon in Castle Street and sat with it the whole way up. And everybody's just.
Yep. What, just a single, not in the cage, or just a pigeon?
Just had it, just like,
okay.
and
you're lucky it was only a pigeon.
No, that's a good one in there, and So West Belfast, born and bred.
Right, good man. And you started as a wedding singer, didn't you? That was kind of
playing in a wedding band, so I was playing.
Did you a proper job at the same time?
Yeah. So after school, I was in call centres for about 10 years, like training people coming into call centres that worked cell phones for Phones for You and Vodafone and all that stuff, and then started.
Did you start telling jokes at the call centre?
See, it was so much like doing stand up that I think that's what kind of made it kind of an easier transition than going from doing like a mechanic or something to being it, because you would have the same, like you would be training the same thing every couple of weeks. You had people in 2 weeks. It was like doing a 2-week stand up set, and you had all your wee jokes, and after a while, when you had somebody in shadow and you'd be like nearly able to tell, and he's going to fucking here we go again. He's going to make this joke because you could tell, and so it was great. I enjoyed doing all that, and then I was playing in the wedding band kind of towards the end of that as well. So that was again another thing. Those two things: playing the guitar, doing backing singing, DJing as well, and having been doing the call centre trainer for so long. Whenever I decided to do stand up, it kind of became both of those things merged into one, where I stood up and I just, play guitar and told jokes.
We once did a sketch on Dry Your Eyes. It's one of my favourites. I actually would stand up today, but it was set at a call centre. But it was Indians, people in India, right, who are trying to get through.
Oh yeah, I think I remember this.
And the call centre, but they're from Derry, and they can't understand. The Indians can't understand the Derry accent.
Damon Free.
Yes, the late great Damon Free.
Brilliant.
We got the genuine. It was all Lada Sharma did the Indian.
I do remember that.
And Damon Free came and did the genuine Derry accent.
Delhi, London, Delhi.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so the irony about it is we were an outsourcing call centre, the first one I worked in for years, for an Indian company so I had some classmates who were from India but overworking with us, and the culture they just loved getting stuck in. And I had a fella, Shahid was one of my best mates, and he was from Pakistan, and he was over and he'd have a few wee drinks. I should change his name. But he loved having a few wee drinks and all, and some of the observations and stuff that he would make were just so spot on. We were getting a burger one time, and he was like, Paddy, what is burger on its own? And I says, burger on its own? He says, I said nothing, my burger. And he says, you want a burger on its own? Burger on its own. And he thought he was getting something called a burger on its own, and I was like, no, it's a burger on its own. We just merged 20 words. We'll do a sentence in a syllable. That's what we'll do.
Burger some.
Very good. So did you love comedy beforehand? Did you just get into comedy, or did you like it? Are there any particular TV shows, local shows in particular?
Trying to think.
What? There's one that just that inspired me and that made me go, I can do
that. Give over. Give over one. What was that give over one? But so genuinely, yes, I did start watching comedy from as no age, and I was at went to Edinburgh Fringe in 2019, not to perform. It was even though I'd started doing stand up, and I bumped in. Do you remember Tony Slattery used to be on?
Yes.
Whose lines it anyway? Passed away recently. But as a kid, I for some reason he looked a bit like my uncle. I thought he was great, and so I used to watch anything that featured him on TV, and I really embarrassed him by saying to him after his gig, I remember watching the trailer for your sitcom Just a Gigolo, and he was like, what age are you? And I said, well, I was born in 84. He says, that came out in 1990. So at 6 years old, I was watching a show about a male prostitute. And I remember asking my ma, going, Mummy, what's a gigolo? And she was like, was it never mind? I was like, fuck, there we go.
So is that what
straight
you
to
looked up to?
Yeah, that's what I aspired to be. But that kind of told me, I didn't think I was watching from that.
Open to you.
Is it? Yeah. Here, I wouldn't turn it down. But watching comedy, always watched Billy Connolly and stuff and I think that kind of influenced this kind of style of storytelling that I would do in stand-up, and then standing playing guitar and weaving in and out of it. It was kind of from back then, Billy Connolly was one of those comedians that, even though looking back, I can't believe my parents let me watch some of this, he was that charming with it and that funny with it. He could get away with doing a bit of blue material for a while, and everybody would go, we'll ride this out for a bit, and so
with me it was Dave Allen, because my dad was quite Catholic, quite strict, that way, but for some reason, he always let me watch Dave Allen. I don't know why.
Even though he was so sacrilegious.
Exactly the same experience. My mother did not like Dave Allen because he was, he mocked the church. He wasn't
and
satirical. It wasn't about anything about child abuse. He just mocked the church. My dad loved it. That style of sitting down and being able to just tell stories.
But he was very risque for his time. But for some reason, my dad didn't have a problem with Dave Allen.
Yeah, it is. If you're that good, you can get away with it, But I think genuinely though about Give Me Headpiece, I was saying this the other day. I reckon Give Me Headpiece user in line for a Nobel Prize, because you came about at a time when we needed to start laughing at what was going on, and there was no outlet, there was no comedy scene really per se on TV. I know you had the Empire Laughs Back and stuff, but that kind of came a wee bit later, I think. But genuinely, I remember going, I was like, that was class at that time. When needed, the peace process was kind of starting to trundle along and stuff. The ludicrousness of what was going on was actually being shown in a sitcom on TV. I was like, that was really actually quite sort of powerful, informative to go, that's how you fucking defeat it, is to take the piss out of it,
make them look ridiculous.
So user do a statue or something.
It's not the words of Tim McGarry, the words of Paddy Raff. That's always a very wise, intelligent man.
Maybe or a pension, maybe be good.
Either or.
By the way, if there is a statue, whoever did the Geordie Best, don't Not that one. No. But I mean, you're 20 years younger than us, so you kind of 84. You were born. We're all 64. So you caught the tail end of the Troubles and bits and pieces in West Belfast.
Born in 64. We aren't 64.
What was that working?
Born in
not a kick in our solve, no. How long?
Shut up.
Yeah. But yeah, so that it's a funny thing. Whenever you say to people you're born in '84 and you like sort of remember the tail end of the Troubles, you get people who maybe aren't from here that think, oh right, okay, think that it petered out, but it actually got quite bad towards the end. And like my morbid sense of humour, the turn of phrase I use, and I remember Dan Gordon fell off his chair when I said this. I said that it was like in a football analogy, the end of the Troubles was if somebody said goal the winner. Everybody started scrambling, trying to land the final goal. It was like fuck. And instead of it just petering out, it was very much goal the winner, and like he was going to. So
a couple of penalty shootouts.
Say the word about that. And there was no VAR back then, unfortunately. So it was that thing of, so you got sort of this really weird where you got it getting quite bad, and then there was ceasefires, and then you got the peace, and then you're like, oh my god, is this what it's going to be like now? So you got a bit of both, and I think that's what's really sort of interesting for our generation with our comedy is that we know my age kind of we know how bad it was before, so we never want to go back to there. So we're kind of determined to never let that, and that's why like even in my stand-up I do take the piss out of both sides in such a way that it's like I'm not even trying to be even-handed. It just all of it was so ludicrous to me, and I was brought up that way, was that don't care about it too much. Do you know what I mean? Like that was not a big deal for us.
Right. So I mean, you also started online as well. Did you start the stuff online before you went? I said at the top, I'd heard your name, Paddy Raff, and he sings songs, and then I heard he sold out the Empire. I went, I haven't really heard of this guy. The next thing I know, you're doing fucking SSE arenas, and that literally went from there to there like that.
Yeah, online really helps. Like, and as you know yourself these days, where it's like you feel like if you're not doing stuff online, then how do you like I find that my gigs, my sort of audience tends to be like 35 and up, with actually a lot more older ones, and it seems to be like people my age are bringing their parents and whatever. But I'm finding then a lot of people are coming up to me and saying, like ones that are like my in-laws age and older, like in their late 70s, going, I get sent your stuff on the WhatsApps, when you're going around. Okay. So that's how you get, you can reach people through all these different avenues. I think that's what it was that I sort of had a few, I started in March 2016, or should I say March 2018, and
was your first gig?
No, yeah, well, so I that was my first open mic spot.
Comedy gig.
Yeah, 5-10 minutes at that. And whenever I was going to be going up to that, I was building up that, like I'd signed up a couple of months before. I'd met with, do you know Mark McElroy, producer, BBC?
Yes,
very,
Mark.
very good.
Yeah.
And he gave a brilliant bit of advice.
Yes. Well, he does did Soft Border Patrol.
Yeah.
Good lad, Mark.
So, and I remember meeting him, and I was saying, I want to get into stand-up, and I want to get into comedy writing. I didn't want to get into stand-up at the time, sorry, that was what it was. I wanted to just do comedy writing. I wanted to take this sort of cards way out, as to go, I'll sit at home and write funny stuff and send it and let other people perform it. And he just kind of went, no.
They don't do it right, you see.
Yeah, well, that's it. He says,
that was our experience.
They don't. And he
you have to do it yourself.
That's it. You have to put yourself out there, because it's the best barometer for, is what I'm writing funny, is that would I be confident enough to get on stage and say this?
But also where the joke is.
Yeah,
and sometimes actors don't.
Yeah, well, that was his advice then, was that he says, you've got to. I was thinking about doing the stand up, but I wanted to do the comedy writing, and he says, take that stand up gig, make yourself do it. And he says, because if your script or whatever it is lands on somebody's desk, and they go, even if they don't know your name, but you're able to say online that, I do stand up, they go, well, that person believes in themselves enough to put themselves out there. Or if it's online. So it was purely because of him that I went, right, well,
sound advice.
I'll do my social media. So I started my own social media accounts, and I booked the stand-up gig as well, and like it all just took off from there. Like from that night, I did a couple of parody songs, and like 2 or 3 of them went viral off that, because I think it was my sister came and filmed, and they went viral. So that kind of started the online stuff, got kicked with that, and so it all kind of just spiraled from there. Within a few years, we were doing the SSE. It's crazy, like speeds.
The purists like me would go, musical comedians, you're just cheating.
The amount of times I heard that backstage.
I did a solo show. I had to write 70 minutes of jokes. You just go dring, dring.
I do 2.5 hours.
I do 3.5 minutes, and it's.
I do 2. Well, hey, listen.
I do 2.5 hours.
I do 15 minutes. whenever I start, I'll do an hour and 15 for my first half. The first 15 minutes is musical on the guitar. Then I do about an hour as myself. Then I come back out in the second half as Nigel and do about half an hour, and then do an encore as myself as well. So I put the hours
He's
in.
being very disingenuous there, because I mean, come on, admit it. You love a song in the theatre.
Well, that's true. We
all
do.
get a break.
We give a headpiece. We have about 2 or 3 songs.
2 songs every night. Well played songs, always good. You know, what do we call them? We call them minute eaters. That's a minute eater.
Yeah,
His voice.
Oh,
You know.
well, no, it's more the choreography I like. It's the dancing, the routines. That we
The
do.
dolly dancing.
Very sophisticated. But but listen, by the way, congratulations on coming up with a brilliant character like Nigel from BT9. Not a million miles away from the organisers of Cultural.
Very organised, yes, indeed.
20 years before.
Cultural,
I'm not just.
yes.
I'm just saying that.
Well, now,
which we stole
Yes.
from.
There's nothing new in comedy. We stole it off Jimmy
We
Young.
stole it off Jimmy Young, who probably stole it off somebody else.
Yeah. It's one of those things, though. It's like,
but it works a treat.
it's just one of those sort of parts of society that everybody has their own take on it and come at it from different angles. And like I genuinely with that character, I never wanted to be like somebody like launched the character, but I was using like Snapchat filters at the time to do different videos, because I still wasn't too confident in just being, just be yourself online or on stage.
Yeah.
So for that, I was using Snapchat filters, and then that one came up with the moustache and the glasses and the wig, and it was during one of the hosepipe bands, and I was like, just like ad-lib this thing about touting on your neighbour for filling up their their paddling pool during the band. And so that went big, and then I did a couple of other ones, and then somebody was like, "Oh, you have to do this character live. What's his name and all?" And then I was like, it kind of went that way as opposed to me trying to force it. So then I was like, "Well, how do you do this live?" So then that's when the whole wig thing had to come in, and the moustache and all that there. And it ended up, that was the first time. I think I did him after like a year live for the first time. It was the first time I actually enjoyed myself on stage, because it was always really nerve-wracking, because when you go on as yourself, it's very vulnerable. If they don't laugh, they're not laughing at you. But when I went on as like Nigel, it felt like, all of a sudden it was like I could enjoy it and relax, because it wasn't me, it was a character, and the stupid things that it was saying, albeit deliberate, were the character saying it. So and you can get away with far more, slagging far more and all that there, so I enjoyed doing the Nigel stuff live more, but it was purely, people coming up to me going as well, like, where did the inspiration come from? And I was like, at the time, I don't know, just like a posh voice. And then my mate Mark, he plays like the piano on stage with me as Jarlath. After a few months doing it, I came to his house. I was like, "Paddy, are you doing an impression of me online?" And I was like, "Oh, fuck yeah." He's like, he's my first like posh friend who I met in the call centre actually. And then that's when I realised, I'm just doing your voice online. And like, so sometimes when we were out like touring, and if he plays with me, and let's say like after you're meeting people in the green room, some people will be talking to him, and I could see them looking, and then they'll just go, "Is he the real Nigel?" Like, kind of is.
Is he taking it okay?
Yeah, he acts like he hates it, but he loves it. No, he would, every now and again we'd be playing, and he'd throw the odd like Nigel joke in, because he's from that world. He is quite posh, really brilliant pianist, like, but he's like, I always say, like, Nigel is what I would be like if I tried to run with a posh crowd, because I don't know all, I don't read the classics, I don't know, and then it's Nigel trying to, and then getting it completely wrong. So it's really just me with a wig and a posh
people
voice.
I met.
Yeah, exactly.
That's as posh as it got.
Fell slightly short.
I don't know where we went wrong hanging around with Westies.
Bringing you down.
I like the priest character.
Father Pat,
He's very...
Yeah, that was that again, and that was, it's funny, you can look back and see like where the origins came of it. It was, my son had a like wee Bluetooth microphone that we got in like B&M or something, and it had this setting on it where when you talk, it was like the echo, and I was like, do you know, we go on to Cemetery Sunday? Do you remember?
Yeah,
go down and they'd be like, it was like Glastonbury for morning, and then be sitting going, what the fuck's he saying? Like, so this sounded like it. So I started doing this like, there was like, the radio was on, and it was like Faithless, a dance tune by Faithless. So I started singing like Ave Maria over it, and the Mysteries of Faith, Sweetheart of Jesus, all the classics, like. And again, like, that was kind of getting a bit of traction. So then it kind of morphed into a DJ and priest, and now there is one, Father Guillermo, some like Portuguese guy who actually is a bald priest who DJ, and I just keep getting tagged all the time, going, "Paddy, he's stealing your dinner here." And then with the Pope getting elected there, I was like watching it, sitting in the house, and I didn't know you can't really tell when something's going to be such a big cultural moment. You know, you just go either electing the Pope, and then all of a sudden, like I was getting calls from people to like live stream it. Then my ma was out in Sainsbury's, she was like, "Oh, they're the new Pope now." So I was having to show her, and there's people gathering around. Oh, who is it? Who is it? You know. So I was like, "This is pretty big." So I cut the footage from the sketch show of Father Pat playing in his metal band, Aerosmith, and I was like, "Oh, in my class, if they played like the after party." So while the Pope was being elected, I was already editing the video to make it look like it was on the BBC, and I was about to upload the footage, and I went, no, what would be even funnier is if I cast the footage to the TV and film it on my phone to make it look even more legit. It genuinely caught people out, because it has the footage of the Pope, you know, waving cheerio and as he turned around, and then I did the BBC voice, and they're like, and now we cross live to Aerosmith at Conchella, the Conclave after party, and so the band plays, and it looks legit. So then I was getting tagged on it by people who'd uploaded it going, the Catholics are fucking crazy and all. They love a good party. Like, Paddy Raff, what were you doing there? I was like, oh my god, I put that up, you know. So I love doing those wee sort of subversive kind of things online where you can kind of trick people. And then my wife would be like, why don't you put your watermark Paddy Raff comedy on it so people know it's you? And it's like, but if people clock that it's a comedy thing, it won't go any further. You know, it'll only stay within a small group. So let it go out there, and like whatever crack happens, it'll happen.
So do you have a separate life online? Does that feeds the live gigs and the tickets and stuff?
Yeah,
like
because
that?
sometimes a lot of people do this now where they'll film their stand-up and put, you know, stand-up clips online, and I do a wee bit of that. I don't do, you know, I film a lot of stand-up, but I don't put too many clips out, because I find it online, for me, the easier thing to do is just be sitting watching something happening, and you go, oh, I'll come up with an idea, and I'll either go, this is a sketch for online, or this is a wee bit for stand-up I'll keep, or this is something for Nigel. And you kind of filter it, and if it's something to go online, then I love getting it done really quickly and putting it up.
You produce stuff very quick. Your two children, do they get paid? Because they're working very hard for you, my friend. They're only 7 and 10. That is child labour.
Yeah, it saves a hell of a lot of money. There's no equity.
Get this for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I know. They're not in equity. It's all under the book, you know, off books. But no, they kind of, the reason they got used in the sketch show was because the sketch show was done like during lockdown conditions, the pandemic, it was like
your family.
They were literally like, are they in your bubble? You know, like that was the easiest. If you didn't get a role and you're in someone's bubble, you get out of the industry, you know. So, but yeah, the kids that they love to get. So I always would have used their like voices off camera. You know, they love doing that. So and then it was like whenever it came to doing TV, it was like, you know, well, I'll let them be on TV, because genuinely I wasn't going to let them. And then I was sitting like putting my son to bed one night, and I got a message from the producer, and it was a video of one of the kids auditioning for the part of my son, because after the pilot we were going to use, you know, like child actors. So I came out of the room and I sort of hit play, and the volume was up, and this wee kid goes, hi, my name's whatever his name, my name's Colin, and I'm reading for the part of Paddy Raff's son. And then the door opened, my son went, what? And he was raging, and he stormed into my I was like, he is auditioning kids for my part. I was like, does he think it's for real life? You know, like I'm getting rid of him, there's a foster kid coming. So he cracked up that there was a notion that I was going to have other kids playing him, so I wasn't allowed to use anybody else. Class. That's what I tell whenever they come asking.
Who produced that?
A nice one, Chris Jones.
Chris, of course,
you know Chris, yeah. Mastermind now, you know, so he's...
I like some of the silly stuff, though. I love the sketch about the spacecraft landed on Mars. And then they realised they've left the keys behind the space station.
And Dan playing the dad in the back was just hilarious. But it was, that was one of those ones where, you know, you kind of, you run away with yourself and you go, we've got a green screen, what could we do with the green screen? It's like, it was it was the observational stuff of what it's like going to Donegal on the big long car journey, and you're all sitting there, and you've took, you know, your father or mother-in-law in the back, and they're opening egg and onion sandwiches, and, you know, doing that weird cough, and you're like, for fuck's sake, you know. And then I was like, well, let's just set it in space for the cracks. So what did we set it in space?
You get to the caravan and you've
left the keys. Yeah, I was like, imagine getting the Hawaii to a pod on Mars. And I was like, how have you got the keys? Like, as if you get the Hawaii to Mars and there would be another way of getting in. But I was just like, let's just leave it at that. So yeah, it was good fun. Yeah,
brilliant. And you've played, how many times have you done the SSC now?
6
times.
Yeah, that was...
So you only started in 2018?
2018, yeah. So the first one was just before the pandemic. So the weird thing was that sort of because the online stuff was going really well, and that's the thing, it's like the two things have to feed into each other, and you'll know yourselves, is like, it's not if you're good on one thing, but then they come see in another, and it doesn't feed off the other, then it kind of falls down. They go, oh, well, I'll just watch them online, or vice versa. But if you can do it live, people were coming from watching the videos and then coming live and going, oh, but you're only started, but you're dead on. That's because I've been training in a call centre, playing in a wedding band, so I was able to kind of hit the ground running to an extent. So it was just before the pandemic then. So 2 years after it started, we did the first SSE, and that was 2 weeks before lockdown. So we were like worried about whether or not we'd get to do it, and there was a second date meant to happen early April, but that obviously was going over to go. And so 2 weeks, there was the last thing in the SSE, and the next time I was in the SSE was for my jabs, when it was opened as the thing. So we were coming down, I don't know how long after that was, a year later. And I was sort of walking up, and on the way down, I'd said to my wife, you know, like, I hadn't been out of the house in so long, and I was dressed in this, I threw on this like sort of jacket that I had, and it looked like a navy gilet, these blue jeans, and then these pair of like brown trainers. And I said to my wife, "Do I look like a culture today?" And she was like, "No, you don't." I was like, "I do." She's like, "You're always me. Let me go and change these shoes." Like, no. So got the whole way down. We were walking up to the entrance, and this fellow was standing, letting people in two at a time. It was all very, you know, sort of managed, and then I was like, he's going to notice me from having gigged in here, you know, and saying, like, "Oh, you're back." And I was walking up, and he says, "All right there," and I was like, "Here we go." And he's like, "Here," and he says to my wife, he says, "I bet you when he promised you a day in the big smoke, it wasn't to come get your jabs." I was like, "I'm not a fucking culture, all right. I live about 5 minutes right there. You can see my house from here." So yeah, but they got the jabs, and then the next time it was open for gigs was the first of the next 4 shows. Right. So it was like, I like lived in there for a wee while, you know. It was just like bump. It was mad, you know. But it's a sign of like the whole like scene here taking off. You know, it was already starting just before the pandemic, but whenever the pandemic kind of kicked in, all of a sudden, you know, the scene went, you know, sort of stratospheric. And my theory on that is a lot to do with our accent. We hated our accent a lot more than we do now, because you only ever heard our accent on TV. Well, you never. It was like, it was always, you know, like RP kind of, you know, news presenters or English news presenters, you know. So we never heard our accent ever. So when we did hear it, it was like, oh, we hated it. And it's like, even down south, they had, you know, Fair City and Glenroe and all that stuff, and English and Scottish had their own regional entertainment where they would hear their accents. So they were miles ahead of us, decades ahead, hearing their accent. We never ever did. So it wasn't until like Give Me Headpiece and stuff started coming, you know, where you started to hear the accent and getting used to it. But I think that with online now, you're hearing our accent constantly, you know, and now there isn't that barrier. When somebody with our accent was trying to be funny, it's like, what are you trying to do? You know, we can't be funny, you know. Whereas now we're kind of shedding that embarrassment a bit, and it's allowing people to listen to art and not use that as a barrier, so they can just judge on whether or not they do think it's funny, as opposed to instantly being turned off by it.
But the first time we went to Edinburgh, we were doing like multi-Python accents. Like you had to do that.
We were kind of thought that was comedy.
We were, it was all, you know, nudge, wink, wink, sign 'em all, sign 'em
all.
Did
you genuinely have to do that?
Yeah, we were doing all that. And then there was a Scottish troupe called the Bodgers. Said, "What are you doing? You know, you're from Belfast, do your accent."
Your accent, yeah.
Because we were so embarrassed to actually do our own accent. And that was like, it was literally, like, they were just looking at us going...
Because we grew up with Monty Python and stuff. We thought that's what funny is.
But we thought that was the only way you had to do an English accent to be funny.
Yeah.
Because we were so...
Otherwise you were a terrorist.
Yes, otherwise you were in the raw.
That was it. We never got to hear our own accent as well, because it was dubbed over by, you know, Maggie Thatcher insisted it was dubbed over. But I did, one of the funniest, like, again, it's one of those things, the kind of comedy I love doing is the wee subversive weird ones. It was the... I made one that was footage of the Addams Family from the 60s, 50s, whenever it was made. And I put it up, and I said that time that the BBC got it wrong and mistakenly overdubbed Gomez Addams instead of Jerry Addams. So I made this out, and it was every time Gomez Addams spoke, it was like, "Oh yes, Mr. Conway, of course Grandmama has a unique collection of knives." You know, I was like, it was the exact words of that.
But be careful, you'll get sued.
There's a court case going on. But people took it, people genuinely thought it was real. And so there's people like putting it on Twitter and stuff, going, what were the Brits like and all. And I was like, this is a piss take. Although we're bad, but this is quite obviously a piss take. So I love doing things like that. And like the old old footage from the Troubles of reporters coming over and being slightly snooty. And I took it then, and because I have a wee bit of a background in music, sort of producing, where you can create that exact sound of the way that they would have, the audio quality. Yeah. So I did that with the accent, and then just put a completely different story to the actual footage. And again, people thought it was real, of this guy just being absolutely pranked everywhere he went in Belfast. And people were like, this can't be fucking real. Like, digging it, was like, of course it's not real. It comes from a kind called Paddy Raff comedy, But I love trying to make sure you slip those
You're
things
quite technical, and so you can edit music and film and stuff like that. I mean, it takes a bit of skill to do, or is that kind of maybe we've just
too old for that?
No, genuinely. We remember being in radio and people slicing things up and sticking them together.
With a razor blade, that's right.
I thought this was backstage at the green room here, so passing things about. But yeah, that sort of stuff. I think that again was another reason it helped, was because my sister's special needs, and I used to always make her like wee movies on what do you call it, Movie Maker back in the day. So I always had a wee bit of sort of technical knowledge, and then doing the wedding band stuff, recording and stuff like that as well, and a wee bit of video editing, because you kind of, if you can do it yourself, it means that, and that's in the comedy sense, it meant then that whenever I wanted to put stuff online, I could take that idea and go, oh well, I'll record it this way and I'll edit this and I'll put this sound effect under it. It's like some videos, like, if you want to create that you're in a bar, some people are like, well, ringing around, can we get a bar, can we book it? And you're like, no, sit yourself in a corner and go onto YouTube and type in bar ambience and download it and put it on. All of a sudden you can hear the glasses clinking and people talking, but you weren't even there. And it's just wee things like that can just add to levels to your sort of to help things land online, so you're not waiting on a video editor to do something for you or somebody to shoot it for you, so that if something happens on the TV, I can instantly go, I'll make something now, and within an hour you've got something out there. The other reason you do it as well is because I hate whenever you do something and it's been out for weeks, and by the time your joke comes out somebody's made the same or similar joke, you know what I mean? So if you can do it quickly, chances are you'll be the first person to make that joke, whether it's funny or not's another thing, but I said it first.
Which is why television is fucked. That's what
I was going to ask you about. How close to the filming of Give My Head piece would you have been adding jokes in and changing things?
In the past,
they were quite tight.
Recording on a Friday night or Thursday night.
It's online. It's super quick now with editing and stuff. But actually, it's slower now. The process is actually slower than it used to be. I mean,
because of compliance.
Yeah.
Oh really?
It used to be you could do whatever you wanted, and it would come out. You record. We used to record Perfect Ulster on Friday night, and it would go out on Saturday morning. Now, because of compliance and because of all the BBC rules, there's no way that it's going to be out the next day, because you've got to basically fill in 20 forms. Say, somebody said this, but
why online podcasting is so successful, because people just do it, and there's no producers, there's no
so quick and turnaround and all.
You said there's nobody telling you, Paddy, no, you can't say that.
Paddy,
you sure about that?
Yeah,
you make your own judgment of it. But there's nobody.
I mean, back in the earlier days when we were the first series, the first one I Give My Head piece, in the 1990s. I mean, we were doing the show and literally doing the show, and it was going out the next day.
Wow,
that's how quick it was being done. It was being edited that
not
next
no
day.
More.
Well, that's so. Did anything ever change where you made like a satirical joke, and then something changed, and you were like, "Oh my god, we've said blah blah blah," and now something's changed?
Actually, funny enough, and it's quite opposite. Actually, we were doing an episode where Tim was turned out to be a big tout, a massive tout, and we'd done all these jokes, and we'd done all these Dennis Donaldson jokes, and he was literally
no.
And we were, fuck, what we're going to do? And we had to cut it, we had to re-edit it that day before we actually went out.
Oh my, or else maybe just even pull it.
Yeah, well, no, that actually the guy in charge came down to say we need to pull this, and we said, well, we
can edit.
It was a meeting. It was quite a funny sketch. I mean, Dal's down in the he's down in the Armalite and ballot box, and and everybody starts to admit to being a tout, so it turns out that he's the only one who's not. Everybody else is but it was during this time when the Donaldson story had broken and all that sort of stuff. And what was funny then maybe wasn't quite so funny because this had happened.
So we literally re-scripted it that afternoon.
My God.
We rehearsed it, so.
And reshot it?
No, we were about to shoot it, and we were luckily enough. Do you know what I mean? But the news had broken the day of the record, so we were able to rewrite it. All the actors had to relearn it. I mean, it was completely different scenes, so.
Yeah.
that just
Does
shows you,
happen. Yeah.
Bizarrely, the only other thing, we had an archive show called Pop Goes Northern Ireland, which was Archive of the Troubles.
Yeah,
We've
yeah.
probably stolen stuff from.
Yes, it probably have.
No, it's a very good source, genuine.
Yeah.
Pop Goes now. Take a year of the Troubles, and it's just archiving music. And we thought it was highly political as well, because it's all about the Troubles. We thought this is going to get us in a lot of trouble. There's going to be a lot of political reaction. We had only changed one thing in the entire 38 episodes we did, which was from 1969. The last song on it was Rolf Harris singing Two Little Boys. And when we recorded it, that was fine. And then a couple of years later, the BBC went, by the way, we're not repeating that. I go, what? Why? Rolf Harris? And you go, that's genuine. Nothing to do with Iraq or the Troubles or bombings or shootings or politicians.
When it was being edited, and that was the interesting thing, because the BBC has kind of a list of music you can use, and there's someone wants to say you cannot use the Doors, you cannot use, don't even think about
the Beatles.
Don't use this.
It came out in 1969. The Rolf Harris song Two Little Boys, so it's going way back before your time. But if you're a certain age, Two Little Boys was something that
I know, I've heard it.
Yes, if you were like so 1969, like you're kind of like about 4 or 5, and
it was the hit,
and it was the hit song. And everybody sung it for their parent. It was your party piece. If you were a certain age, your mum would get you to do your party piece. When your aunties were over. Two Little Boys, iconic song. And of course, we put it at the end of the 1969 thing. It was all very poignant and brought us all back.
And then
a couple of years later,
But it's interesting. The list of this music has just grown. All these people you can't use. Right, paedophile.
That is
sex offender. It's just growing and growing.
Murder.
Seriously, I think like Gary Glitter, because originally you could use Gary Glitter, and it was like
that was my son found the Christmas song he did, Rock and Roll Christmas, and I was like doing the dishes, dancing away, and I was like, how long? I was like, that's fucking Gary Glitter. I was like, who the fuck? And then he was like, Daddy, I've been adding songs to your Spotify, and I was like, Jesus Christ. I was like, and then he was like, well, I turned it off. I was like, well, we're reverse into it already. Let's just. But he's already got that 2p check in the post.
Was there not a big row because it was used in the Joker?
Yes, the rock and roll part. It was used, but that's one of those things where you're like separating the art from the artist, and like Phil Spector was his Christmas album.
Of course, that's right.
Was just like in our house was always played, and I still have to go like imagine like he murdered at least one person that we know of anyway. I have to say alleged. I'm pretty sure he's either dead or in prison. Okay, either.
Well.
But yeah, it's one of those things. But like if you were saying about like the list of music, that was what was so annoying for me with the sketch show, was because a lot of my stand up is quite musical, and I wanted to do so much of it. The amount that I would say in the BBC, and they're like, you can't do this because this person's music and that person's music. So we ended up having to chop and change quite a bit of it. But it's funny about that thing of when you get a big problem and it ends up leading to something better. Was the last episode of the first series was meant to end with a Nigel song. Every episode ended with a Nigel song, and the last episode happened to be a song that still hadn't got clearance for yet, so it had to go to. It actually went to the artist's like label, and they says the artist needs to be asked in person. Do you know Phil Oakey from Human League. And he said no to it for whatever reason. Not an Nigel fan. So I was like, what are we going to do? And we were close to like shooting. They were like, you have to write something else. And I was like, what else? And I was like, the only other musical person's Father Pat. And I was like, but we've done loads of his hits, like DJ hits. And I went, okay, like we used to, when we played in the wedding band, when we were practicing, we would do metal versions of hymns. So I was like, what if he has a metal band? So all of a sudden we created this whole, so then we ended up doing this whole metal playlist thing, and then it ended up going viral there recently. So it's funny how something, that wee problem ended up making it.
It actually happened to us with, funny enough, I'd like to teach the world to sing.
Okay.
We were doing it in the Opera House, and we had done New Seekers and all that. But it turned out it was owned by Coca-Cola, because they did the ads, like to teach, and we were changing the lyrics. We were going, I'd like to teach the world to sing, the man behind the wire, the soldier song, the grabby boy, and you should once again. Of course we went to them, of course Coca-Cola
surprisingly
said no.
But don't know their Northern Ireland politics. They're not into their satire. Coca-Cola.
I thought they were going to pull me recently, because I had that video where I was up having something to eat, and a big massive truck with all fresh pallets came past.
Yes, I saw that.
It's the Protestant version of the Coca-Cola truck, and like I was like, I tried to add the Coca-Cola music to it, but it got blocked on like some platforms. Like, I'll just take it off.
Do you have a lot of trouble with PRS and stuff? And
it got
worse.
bad for a while. I think it's getting better, because I think companies are now realizing it's better just to let people use your music, because it gets the name out there. I think it's a newer kind of approach to it, that it is better just to let somebody use your music.
It's all out there anyway.
Exactly.
I get it.
Well, it happens a lot with Pop
with
Northern
live
Ireland, because it's going out. A lot of those episodes are on YouTube.
Ah, yes.
It sort of defeats the purpose, because a lot of them played at nothing because they've had to take the music out.
Yeah.
So you just get the
It's just
archive,
muted.
and you don't get the music.
You think
It's
you've
a bit
gone
strange.
deaf?
Yeah.
Booking in for a hearing appointment.
So for your live shows, then you're allowed to play whatever you want, but just pay PRS.
Well, no, that's the thing, is that for live, and it's one of those things they've had to drill into, because it matters a lot that if you're going to try and use it. You can do whatever you want live, play anybody's music live. It's if you try and video that and then put it online to make any kind of money off it, or put it on TV to make any kind of money off it. It's kind of covered under fair use for any live performance of almost any song, as long as you don't try to take it and put it online, and try and make something of it then. So I don't know, were you going to put that on like TV or something, the Coca-Cola one, or did they just hear about it?
It was going to be on that. So there were, and
It was the one that we were doing. It was the BBC were recording the live show.
Well, in there,
and
that's where the
it became
problem
an
comes.
issue.
Yeah.
So it just had to come out. As simple as.
Is that why it's only Pepsi cans I'm seeing right there? Anti-Coke.
So
Yeah. You're starting a tour soon, aren't you? In the autumn time?
Yep, back out in end of August, right through to sort of late November.
And we were talking about this just before we come on, that I'd done my first ever SSE for 4,000 people, but there's so many clubs in Northern Ireland. You can do wee holes in the hedge. I love Daly's in Oma. I'm doing one up in Derry in the Malvern Hotel. There's gigs every hole in the hedge.
More clubs than a deck of cards here these days. It is. It's amazing that you can just set up a night in a wee hotel or a wee pub, and it just takes off, and then becomes like a big returning thing for that town. And there are wee towns that are like, surely we'll never have Tim McGarry down doing stand up. Would you do the Moy or something? Or like the wee place, the Moy. And it's like when you go down though, it's like, They'll love the fact that you're coming, but it's like it's nowhere. It's so close by. You're home within sort of half an hour or whatever. So that's what I loved about the tour as well, is that starting out, I never thought I would ever get to the stage where you're going on a tour, but I would do like mostly Northern Ireland dates, and you're going to these places, and you go to Cookstown, and they have a class 450 seater venue. Everywhere I'm going, I'm seeing your posters. You're all there as well. We're just following each other around.
That's a nice venue, though.
They're all these towns with class, like world class theatres. That you can, go down and play 2 nights in or whatever, and that's like doing an Ulster Hall in Belfast. The numbers wise. So
have you done English gigs at all?
Yeah, so I've done like on my tours, I'll do like London, Manchester, Liverpool, Glasgow, maybe Newcastle as well. And they get gradually bigger, but it's a lot smaller than here, and a lot of it's expats. People, you'll come up and you'll be chatting away to somebody. And
what about America? So you probably wouldn't get in there, take your phone off.
Exactly. Jesus Christ, the amount of stuff I posted. Yeah, like I wouldn't get past the online form that you had to fill in from here. So that is one of those things. Genuinely, when I started, Trump was in his first sort of term, and it was really hard to get the the visas done and stuff like that. And then when Biden came in, I was like, surely you can get through now, because he's asleep half the time. You can just go through. Yeah. But then Trump coming back in, I was like, there's just no chance. And now with how bad it is, you could end up in a Guatemalan prison, because of something you posted or said. So I'll be like, I'll head to the Newton Abbey Theatre at the Millplex. Be all right.
There are loads of comedians coming out. Is there anybody you'd recommend? Who do you like at the minute? Who's out there that you think?
Oh, Emer Maguire's brilliant. Emer, you've had Emer on.
Had Emer in here.
Emer supported me quite a few times on the tour. He's put me on the spot now. There's so many. Yeah, that's one of the things I've loved about doing the tour, is to get other comedians who are just sort of starting out, and having them sort of giving them a good audience who just my audience tend to be really nice and willing to give people time to make their jokes, make them laugh, and they're not on your down your throat and trying to heckle you. They give you the time, so they always enjoy. So like Talal Jomar is really good. Like
is he from Oma?
Via Damascus,
Yes, he is via Damascus, but he is. Yes, he's from Oma.
Well, his dad's from Damascus anyway. So like people like Talal with a really good, interesting story. Instantly, you're just hooked, because you're just like, right, let's hear. And he's got so many brilliant gags, sort of about all that. But it's just an exciting time for.
It is.
I think because we have so many of those clubs, you're going to find more and more as we go on these comedians that wouldn't have had the opportunity before, because it was just the Empire and maybe Lavery's and maybe one or two others. Whereas now it's like, right, these other places can launch you, and all you need to do is film it, have a wee bit, go viral, and even though that's not, you've completed the game, it's a good start for you to then get other bits in other clubs. So you're going to see, we're going to have to keep thinking on our feet, basically, to fucking take the eye off. None of them support me anymore. That's it. No more support. So I've just realised.
That's right. Don't be any good. Yes. Support me, but be crap. I had Johnny Bow supporting me, who's a great one.
Yeah, it's a great one. Yes. He's our Jimmy Carr, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
Yeah, he's very good.
Likes a nice suit, Johnny.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and the brandy, glass of brandy on stage and all. Yeah.
He's a very good lad. So you Westie, what is it about the West? We've had loads of actors and stuff coming from the West as well. We've had Marty McCann on here. We've had
unemployment, I think.
That's what it is.
There's something in the water up there.
It's one of those things. Yeah, it's just you see so many people coming out of West Belfast. I do think it has probably something to do with sort of a bit of it was crap for a long while, and you had to be creative. I think it was that thing as well of being from a working class background. You don't get the opportunity to have a crack at the arts. Like whenever I was coming up, even though I like playing guitar, and maybe I never said I wanted to be a comedian, but nobody ever would have turned around and said, "You'd be a good actor." Nobody would have done that. I was like, "What?" So it was like, no, you're going to go out and get a job as soon as you finish school. But I think social media now allows. It's taken away that monetary thing of having to have a lot of money to be able to get into the arts and have a safety net, financial safety net. You just have to have a phone or connections. You just literally have to have a phone, and I think that means it's kind of democratized it quite a bit. Where it's like, if you've got a talent and you can put it online, you can go viral. You can reach other people without having to go through all those old routes. So I think maybe that's kind of helped things, And
there's so much variety now in terms of comedy and I mean.
Plus, we are cheeky bastards. Like.
Yeah.
Here?
We always were.
Oh, you're Westies, you mean?
Yeah.
I thought you meant people know. Yeah, Westies, you are. You're not denying it. That's just
behave. Everybody else in Dublin goes behave.
Yes, come on, stop that.
I was thinking, like, because to me,
a free bar, like we'll
yeah, the Westies will be there.
We'll give it a go.
Out of all the weddings, I played at over 1,000 weddings, and the only time I've ever seen there was a few like free bars, and then I was up at a gig in Donegal, and it was a free bar, and it was a crowd from West Belfast up, and I says to the fellas, I was like, bolt down everything, this is going to go crazy. And it was almost like, like when they release horses that have been in captivity and they don't know what to do. They didn't go near the bar. They were too polite. They were like, "Oh, it's all right." But I was like, they've all snuck their own drink up. That's what it is. Like, I fucking brought it. I may as well drink it. But it was the most worst. I've been to places where there was a few BT9ers, and they lost their run on themselves in the free bar, and it was disgusting. But there was this sort of decorum, of these Westies. It was like, no, we'll just leave it. We'll just leave it. We're all right.
That's Upper Andy Town.
Lady Brook, is that what you're saying?
The Brookie ones.
Yeah, the Brooks.
Glengolan, is that a snub?
Oh yeah.
That's pretty. It's pretty nice. Yeah. But it's that's right beside like Colin Valley and then Polglass, which is this wee enclave. And it's between Lenadoon and Polglass, and for some reason Glengolan's nice. You'd think that it would be crazy. It's like, no, it's got its wee air about it. A few solicitors and stuff live there.
Oh, right, okay.
Thames crowd, like a few.
I know a few like that. We're all he used to be a solicitor as well. For West Belfast solicitor.
Yeah, but I got better.
No shortage of clients anyway.
He always ends up with more money than us, doesn't he? I don't know. Something's going on.
Westies,
It's funny. There's a fella I know through a friend, and an older fella, and he's a retired knee surgeon. He was one of the best knee surgeons in Europe. He was known as, and I remember saying he was from here. I was like, how did you end up one of the best knee surgeons in the world? And he says, nobody else had the practice I had during the Troubles. And they'd be reading his notes, because he's getting all the kneecaps of the day coming through there.
I genuinely met a doctor from Derry. Did a similar sort of thing, and he said the pros usually ring him up and say, where's the best place to shoot somebody, so if they didn't want
round the back of the flats.
The medical advice was not to cripple people and how to cripple. It said, you want to do it here and not there and stuff like that. But if they wanted to cripple, they could cripple you. But if they wanted just as a punishment, he was given. He said they had to give advice because they were going, I don't want you crippling people. Reducing the injuries.
Ethical.
And he said that literally had a line to the provost again. Don't shoot them there. Shoot them slightly lower and to the left there.
Well, let's not give specific advice on this program.
But that's society Lee lived in. That's why we are the way we are. Not right, Paddy?
That's it. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. Strange wee world we live in. But, see, the Northern Irish humour is, I mean, we're talking to people on the show and saying even the scene here is far better than Dublin, and comedians from Dublin are coming up here to see what the hell we're doing. And
see, that's what again, it plays back into the thing of they didn't have this boom that we've had of of getting over our accent. They've always had Dublin comedians and a scene, if you know what I mean.
But they've also automatically gone to London. Well, certainly in our day, sort of anybody
straight over were able to go
over to England. And now you have people who don't need to go to London.
Yeah, I do think UK wide though, our accent is still a bit of a barrier, and you don't find too much sort of Northern Irish comedy being given a chance on a national stage, apart from Derry Girls, which is in a way a bit of an anomaly. But I was hoping that when you saw that go big, that would kind of break down the doors a bit more, to let more people from here do things on a national. But I've found, having written a few things and kind of gone down that route, where you do get questioned about certain things, and it's like, you go, well, people really understand what you're talking about when you say this, and you want to water down the what makes it what it is.
You're starting to the Guardians again now.
But then whenever you start to look at what makes other comedies really unique, it is that there's certain TV shows you'll watch from America, from Canada, from Africa or whatever, like where you go, I don't know what these references necessarily mean, but it doesn't make it any less funny. And if I'm really minded, I'll go and Google them. And that's where we live today. Everything has subtitles as well. So in Derry Girls, or some of the stuff that Derry Girls says, genuinely, it doesn't, in my ear, doesn't catch it, but everybody watches with subtitles these days. Is another thing that helps, comedy spread. So I think there is still a bit of a hangover, but we've got over it, and I do get a lot of people coming up from down south, and why is it, there's no cohesion between the southern kind of comedians and the northern ones in terms of gigging together and working together that much. There's they can't sell tickets up here, but they can do 10 nights in Vicar Street, and likewise we can do an SSE or whatever up here, but then whenever you go down there you can't really do too many. Basically, there is, it's still
knew what they were doing.
That's it. We still have partition in the arts, so it is. It's a strange one, but I enjoy it anyway. There's plenty going on up here that allows you to sort of make a living, go out touring and do sort of 20-30 nights in different towns, and still have the crack. And to me, that's the thing as well, is having kids. I don't have that ambition where I'm like, oh my god, I have to travel everywhere, I want to break. I'm kind of like, once they're sort of in their teens and starting to annoy me, then you might find I'll be booking a tour of Dubai, and
but do the late show then.
No, well, have you got an in? we want to say no, but yeah, it's like that thing of I'm kind of happy with where we are at the minute and the way we're sort of the wee projects that I have at the minute.
Have you more telly coming up?
So we just had the travel show thing. So we did 3. Yeah, it was great crack. So we did 3 episodes of that, and we're hoping to do more, because it's one of those shows that you just pick another town, pick another person, and let's just go and have the crack there. And it was one of those things as well. It's like I've grown up would have been like, you can't holiday here, wise up, we're going to go and have a bit of crack and, Ballybogey, and then maturing for me is like with my kids going, we don't have to go to Disneyland every year. It's also trying to be,
you can't go to the Moy.
The Moy. And that was the thing. So it was a bit of a challenge to myself. It was like, can we make these places, because anytime I have tourists coming over and chatting, or people coming to shows and playing in the wedding band as well, the amount of tourists were like, we're having the best time, and they were literally staying in the Moy or whatever, and they're from America or whatever, and you're like, how can they be? But when they come over, they don't see it through our eyes. They don't see it. They see Northern Ireland as this wee small place that you can explore in one day. Whereas we're like, if you're from Belfast, I remember somebody saying they were having lunch. It was family that we had from America, and they were saying, we're heading up to the Jan's Causeway after we have lunch here. And I was like, and where are you staying? They're like, no, we're back to the Europa. And I'm like, you're going to travel up to Jan's Causeway and back in one day? Like, that's, we block a week out for that, but for them, that's a morning commute, is travelling an hour and a half.
But we always had that. You just drive out in 20 minutes and you're in the countryside.
But like, as I'm saying, we feel like that's going really far, whereas to them, it is literally, and then when you go, I suppose, like if we were in America and we're in a town and somebody says, oh, but Niagara Falls is, 45 minutes or an hour and a half that way, we're like, we'll go and do that, no problem.
An hour, I him in my caravan in Newcastle.
Yeah.
And I remembered the keys and everything.
You didn't have Dan Gordon in the back coughing the whole way, eating egg and onion sandwiches, just with a crack.
Did you enjoy working with Dan? Good friend of ours.
Dan was just so good. Like it's one of those things where not coming from an acting background, and you hear about great character actor. I was like, no, Dan is like, as soon as he walked in, I can't remember, the first one I think he did was he played the hotel porter in a sketch about whenever you're getting checked into a hotel, and that came from real life.
You pretend it's your anniversary.
The irony was the exact same hotel. It was in the Sleeved Honoured, where me and my wife walked up to the thing, and my wife's like, Rafferty, yes, no problem. And she said, just 2 seconds. She went in the back, and my wife was like, see if these is asked, because it's our 10th wedding anniversary. I'm like, what? And the next thing you know, your woman's out, and you're in this charade. You're like, yes, it's her. And she would do this, where she would say these things in emails to get a bit of, and you end up getting a couple of swans twisted in the bed and a couple of chocolates. But I was like all nervous. I was like, they're in the back checking the records. Were they here 10 years ago? Because that's where. So this sketch then came about where, and I wanted like an old kind of sort of slightly quirky hotel porter to come in, and and see when he came on like set, and like he just walked on kind of in character with his glasses kind of half askew and like looking about him, didn't know what he was doing. And I was like, this is great. So Dan like stole the show in so many of the scenes that he did.
He has admitted that he will have Red Hand Luke on his headstone. It will be Here Lies Red Hand Luke, brilliant. Also known as Dan Gordon.
No way, that's so good. Yeah, no, Dan's brilliant, and that was what, again, like I say, that working with somebody like him and doing so much stuff online by yourself, you get comfortable just doing it, and then it's not until you start working with other people and you realise there's so much talent out there that can make things so much better than what you had in your head. And he brought so much loads of them, all the ones that in that show. Ironically though, there was a lot of family in that. So my sister Claire played in that scene as well, and my brother Philip and my brother Owen, all these ones who've done a bit of acting. My sister's been in like The Fall and Shetland and all these big sort of Vera and all, like she's been in loads of these. She was in Derry Girls and all as well, and she like went to Lambda, and so she's really done. And I felt bad because then like during the pandemic I was messaging her going, do you want to be in my TV show? It's like after all the years. But she's class. She's starting to do writing and all herself now as well. So it's great to see like females getting the chance to because that's the funniest people that I grew up with were like my mom, my auntie, their friends, and it's great to see that even through the likes of TikTok and stuff, they can just tell their stories and have the crack, and you just go, it's not about ticking boxes, like let's see who's funny, let's have the crack.
You do get that though. Sometimes you write something, you have to do it because that you have to do it because you know how to do it. But other times when you write something and you get an actor like Dan or Paddy Jenkins or somebody that comes along, they just bring a dimension to the character that you never even thought
was there.
They'll bring the extra with them. It's great when it happens. Like
Do you ever write like sort of specifically going, you see something in an actor and you go, I know that there's a character in there, and then you just write for that? Did that ever happen with any of the characters, or was it purely in your heads first? And then
certainly Ma. We always knew Olivia was going to do Ma. There was nobody else going to do Ma. Olivia and Ash.
That was a height requirement, Paddy, we've run out of time, my friend. I'm very sorry. Thank you very much. No, we've had thank you so much for coming in. Best of luck with your tour.
Thank you very much.
You'll be all over the 6 counties, will you? And maybe
even
across the border.
We're all over again. UK and Ireland.
UK and Ireland. Just search Paddy Raff.
One last question: would you advise your children to be comedians?
Don't start that. No, they put me out of business. So no. They want to be YouTubers. All kids these days want to be like YouTubers and all that stuff and influencers. And I'm like, nah, just like. And I genuinely tell them not to. I was like, AI is going to take over. So don't even get into that. Go invent some sort of AI app.
Yeah, absolutely right. Listen, thank you very much for being on the Give My Head podcast. Like and subscribe, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget our live show in the Mandela Hall at Queen's University on Sunday the 12th of October. That's Give My Head podcast live, our first ever live show. It'll be fun, it'll be exciting, there'll be stand-up, there'll be readings from Give My Head piece, there'll be special guests and special stuff happening. So get your tickets now. It'll be a fun evening. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, we're delighted that we had Mr. Paddy Raff on. Paddy, very best of luck with everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.